So, Jody, I think that for me, it was actually really beneficial. I don't think everyone needs to necessarily work outside the home, but I definitely would counsel people that it is important to find something that you're passionate about. And that could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a career. I mean,
Right.
I was fortunate that I had the store, so I could really put my energies into the store. But it could be anything. It could be a hobby, it could be really anything. And I think that really was very helpful as I try to sort of shape and define this new life for myself.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond Empty Nest. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, speaker, mentor, and Chief Dare Officer at Moms Who Dare. Every Thursday, I'll share stories of midlife transformation, happiness tips, and dare you to see the opportunities waiting for you so that you can make this next chapter even better than the last. If you're ready to dare, I'm ready to dare with you. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to Beyond Empty Nest. Today, we're diving into a topic that so many women face, but don't always talk about: thriving as a divorced empty nester. My guest is proof that life after divorce and an empty house isn't the end. It's the beginning of something incredible. We'll explore stepping outside of your comfort zone, building deep and meaningful friendships, and saying yes to adventure, because life isn't meant to be lived on the sidelines. Get ready for some inspiration and practical tips to make this next chapter your best, because my guest today is Susan Cooper, the owner of Gabrielle, a high-end special occasion boutique in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania. She opened the store in 2007. Prior to that, she practiced law for 9 years. She has 3 amazing adult children, and when she's not working, she enjoys running, traveling, and playing pickleball. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. So we're gonna share a little bit of your story through our conversation today about how you've created and are living a happy, joyful, and you're thriving, even in the face of challenges such as divorce and emptiness. But I have to share with everybody how we met. So, and I know that Susan is the epitome of the mantra daring on. I know you are, because we met because I recently came to your store and bought a gorgeous dress for my daughter's wedding. So yay, if you live near Bala Cynwyd, go. Um, it was a fun experience. It was a low pressure experience, but you and I instantly connected.
We did.
We never met before. We instantly connected, so much so that the next week we met for lunch, like literally
Right.
a week later. And sitting at lunch, we shared a lot of our stories with each other. And you shared so much of your journey and what you've gone through in midlife, because daring, you liked the word daring. And I can't wait for you to share that with everybody, because you really are a strong example of what daring on is. And
And
it
thank
doesn't mean we don't get knocked down and sad, but we get up and we figure things out. So I appreciate you being a guest on the show. And at the end, we have a fun announcement for those that do live in the Philadelphia and the Burbs area. So stay to the end, or
That's
else you're
right.
going to miss it. All right. So, Susan, I always like to start with somebody's story. So I don't know, where you want to start with your story. If you want to start and briefly touch on like how you came to go from law to running a store, if that's where you want to start, or where do you want to start a brief version of your story so that people get a sense of like how this all came to be.
Okay. So I practiced law, as you said, for about 9 years, and I have 3 children. When my daughter was about to go to kindergarten, I decided to go back into the workforce. I had, as a practicing attorney, I had really been working part time after I had my third child, but was really too senior to get the cases that weren't stressful. And at that time, I really wasn't making any money working part time. So I took a couple years off. And then when she was ready to go back to kindergarten, my ex-mother-in-law and I decided to open Gabrielle, which was a more focused version of what her store had been. She had been in the high-end women's business for years in the Philadelphia area.
All right. And here you are all these
Here
years.
I am, 18 years later.
And I'm surrounded by my friends in beautiful dresses and gowns, all from your store. So it's great.
Well, thank
All
you.
right. So we talked about you finding yourself divorced. How long, will you share with everybody how long have you been divorced?
So I actually officially have only been divorced since February 4th or 6th, I think, of this year. But
Oh,
I've been separated since about August of 21.
okay.
And yeah, it all sort of all happened at once. I got separated. I became an empty nester. Um, all of these things sort of happened at once, which was definitely challenging.
So you have this boutique. Retail is not easy. And yet you found time to you talk about one of the ways to thrive as going through a divorce and as an empty nester as pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. How did you find the strength to do that? And what was like one thing you did to push yourself out of your comfort zone?
So, Jody, I think that for me, it was actually really beneficial. I don't think everyone needs to necessarily work outside the home, but I definitely would counsel people that it is important to find something that you're passionate about. And that could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a career. I mean,
Right.
I was fortunate that I had the store, so I could really put my energies into the store. But it could be anything. It could be a hobby, it could be really anything. And I think that really was very helpful as I try to sort of shape and define this new life for myself. I
Mhm.
think what I decided to do was really to throw myself into the store. And I'm a very action oriented and goal oriented person. So I decided, really in the last year and a half or so, to really roll up my sleeves and try to really grow the business and make it just even more unbelievable than it was before. And so that really provided me with a great sense of purpose, and I think it really sort of helped me with a lot of the transitions that I was going through.
Yeah, I love that. I know when I've gone through difficult times, I have things in my life that I dive into, not to avoid it, but to give me that sense of purpose so I don't get stuck in the dwelling. So what I hear you saying is like a great way to push yourself out of your comfort zone is to get up out of bed and go do something. Something, whether it is look for a new career, maybe take a class even. But
Right.
put your energy somewhere that makes you feel like you're doing something purposeful for yourself.
Right. And I think,
Was
along
it
with that,
easy? It must not have
obviously,
been easy at first.
right now, and I mean, there were definitely a lot of transitions, a lot of changes. We sold our home house. We all felt a little bit untethered,
Oh,
which is not a fun feeling at all.
no.
I was living in a small apartment that I really didn't like, that didn't feel like home. I felt like my kids didn't really have a home. So I think, though, what I learned about myself, maybe more than I thought before, was how much of a sense of purpose and how empowered, running the store really made me feel. And so once I saw that, it really sort of inspired me to even give more of myself to the store. And it just became, I really would counsel people that, it's not about necessarily thinking about all the things you want to do. You just have to do it. And you might have to pivot. It might not work out great for you the first time, but action is always sort of the anecdote to feeling better, I think.
I love that.
It's
Yeah.
sometimes you get stuck and, you think about a lot of things, or sometimes people think you have to know exactly what your plan is before you execute it. But that really isn't the case. You should try to execute it and then you can always pivot.
I
So,
love that.
yeah,
I love that. Go do something. And volunteering is a great way to do it. If you don't want a job, you're going
100%.
to
It
think
doesn't
about
have
it.
to be a career.
Yeah,
It could be
right.
anything.
I love how
Go
you
take an
said
art
that.
class, or one
Yeah.
of the things I thought about doing, which I haven't done yet, is I really want to take a take up a musical instrument. So
Oh,
that's on my list. But
okay.
there's so many wonderful things you could do. I mean, you could travel, you could, take up a sport. I mean, they don't all have to cost money. It doesn't all have to be a career. It could just be, finding finding something that really really makes you tick.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I have a friend who suffered a significant loss in midlife, and she turned to hiking. Hiking,
Right.
just went out for hikes. It was the most cathartic thing for her. It got her moving, it got her out, it got her in nature. It would help. So I love that. So just take action, do
Take
them.
action.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you also talk about that, and I think this is true in midlife, regardless of transition, regardless if you go through a challenge, but creating new and meaningful female friendships has been important to you? I know it's been huge in my life. I never thought, and I'm gonna guess like me, I've always had friends. I've always had community, I should say. I've always had community.
Yep.
Never thought I needed new friendships. I have made so many new friends in this midlife chapter, and
Yep.
they have been some of the most meaningful relationships. So how has creating new and meaningful female friendships supported you on your journey?
Yeah. Well, I think this is probably something that a lot of people who are in unhappy marriages experience. So I think one of the things that was really challenging for me throughout my married life, and I was married for 26 years, was that for the majority of that time, my marriage was not happy. But I'm a very private person. And even with my closest friends, that wasn't something that I really chose to share. So I felt a lot of times like I wasn't living a true and authentic life. And that was, I think, an inhibitor to really deep and true meaningful friendships because, you can't really get super, super close to people without being honest and
Mm,
authentic. So I did have a lot of friends, as I was raising my kids, but I don't know that those friendships were as real and genuine as some of my friendships now because I was hiding this piece of myself intentionally that I didn't
mm,
think was anyone else's business. So once that was out in the open, and once I was able to live freely and authentically and be honest about the fact that I hadn't been in a happy marriage and that I was moving on from the marriage, I was able to cultivate friendships that were felt much more organic and felt much more honest, which is interesting,
that
So,
is.
yeah, so I really, pushed myself once I was no longer in the community where I raised my kids to really step outside my comfort zone and be open to anyone who kind of wanted to be my friend. And I met all these wonderful women, a lot of whom were also experiencing similar things to me, which was obviously a nice support system.
Right.
And I wouldn't say I was like an overtly social person before. I mean, we would go out on Saturday nights as a couple and I would go out with girlfriends, but I really forced myself, even when I was tired, to go out, to be open to doing new things. If someone invited me to go along with them to something, whereas maybe before I would have been like, oh, I'm so tired from work, I would say, you know what, I'm going to do it. Screw it. I'm going to do it.
I love it. You
Uh,
dug deep. You dug deep because daring to say yes can be hard.
yeah. So I really do have some wonderful new friendships and
That's
new
great.
friends who I've had for the last couple years who really have been a huge support for me as I've tried to navigate this new normal for me.
Yeah, I love that. Everything you said, it resonates in so many different ways. Yes, divorce and a big life change can trigger that. Empty nest is a big life change where your kids are now gone and you're looking around and maybe some of these friendships that you had, even if you're not hiding, but maybe some of these friendships that you have just because your kids grew up with them, just you don't feel like your authentic self with them. You don't feel like you want to share. You don't, and in midlife at our age, it's really empowering and freeing and easy when you can sit around a room and just be
Yeah.
like all of you. I just went on a girls' weekend trip, and the five of us, like, we just sit and share it all. Like, I
Right.
really, I shared with them. I wrote the story about my biggest limiting belief that they had no idea about, and they sat there and I read it and they received it, and it felt like it was great. It was
You
great.
know what, Jody? There is something so infinitely liberating, okay,
Uh,
about living an honest life and
yes,
being honest with people who are around you. I mean, it's so energizing and liberating, and I mean, it's almost like you're on a high in some ways.
and
It's really. It's really, I feel very, very fortunate that even though I think it took me a long time to get here, and obviously, like you said early in the beginning, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell your viewers that like every day I'm this happy, life is always, roses and butterflies and rainbows. It's not. I mean, there are days that I feel down and sad and
sure.
like everybody else. But I think it is very, very liberating to live, to try to continuously live like an honest and authentic life. It's
Yeah,
definitely been a very profound change for me.
love that. I love that. I do. I love that. And that, yeah, we're going to let it land there. All right. So something you shared with me, at lunch, really like, I was like, wow. I'm like, this is when I was like, this girl knows how to dare on. I'm like, you really do. So you talk about stepping out of your comfort zone when you're tired, just saying yes. But you also talked about not that you stop at some point you realize I'm not going to wait for the invitations and I'm not going to wait until somebody's ready to go somewhere with me. Share with our listeners the story you shared with me because I think this was brilliant.
Okay, so I decided, I used to sit and say, I want a companion to do fun stuff with. And then I thought to myself, you know what, Susan, like you can do fun stuff by yourself, or you don't need someone to do fun stuff with you. So basically, what I decided to do is every month I wanted to have something really sort of special to look forward to, whether that was a concert or going to see a comedian or going on a little trip. And it doesn't have to be an extravagant trip, it could be going away for a long weekend. So I started planning things. And then what I decided to do was, even when I didn't necessarily have somebody to go with, I just bought tickets and then I would invite someone to go with me. And usually it's a girlfriend. It's not necessarily like a
Yeah,
prospective boyfriend or anything.
yeah.
So, but yeah, and I guess like my friends have really benefited from this new idea I have, because I don't ask them to pay for the ticket or whatever. I just take them along. If someone, I think about who I think would really enjoy it and who I would enjoy being with at that particular event. And then I ask them to go with me. And it's really proven to be a really fun and rewarding way to enjoy life. And I've gotten to do so many cool things. I've gone to a bunch of concerts. I've went to see a comedian. I'm taking a trip to Aruba. I didn't have anybody to go with. I just booked the trip to Aruba. And then I asked my friend and she said, "Oh, I'd love to go." So we're going to Aruba in April. So
Love
it's been
that.
a really, for me, it's been like a really great action plan. Again, it's about just doing as opposed to thinking about it. I mean, sometimes, as I'm sure you know, when you try to coordinate things with people, it's hard to do it. People, their dates don't jive. So
Nope.
this way, I have the tickets. I
Yeah.
have I say, would you like to join me? If they don't want to join me and they can't, I'll ask somebody else.
I love it because it doesn't have to be extravagant. There are so many local venues that have comedy shows.
Right,
Like there's one in Doylestown, I think it's like $30 to go to a
right.
comedy show. There's so many places. There's open mic nights, there's trivia nights at bars, there's all this thing. But I love when you told me that you decided, you know what? First of all, doing something alone. I have a friend, I think I shared this with you. I have a friend who's twice widowed, twice widowed. And I don't know when it was, but she decided she wasn't dating anymore for a while. I was like, and I said, because I asked her, I said, are you thinking about dating again? It's been a while. She said, no, I think I'm just going to date myself.
Right.
Like take yourself out on a date. It's not, it gets easier as you go. But I did love the part where you said, you know what? Maybe I want to go to this comedy show. I'm going to buy two tickets. And I'm just going to say, maybe you text three friends. First one to say, yes, I'm
Right.
going to a comedy show. And I think it's great. You're doing something great. The thing that, and you probably know this, but the thing, not only did I say that was super brilliant and super daring, you're giving a gift to the person you invite because you don't know the person you invite if they've been feeling stuck in a rut. You might not know that something happened to them that week or that day
Right.
and they were just going to get in their pajamas at 6 o'clock at night and get into their. But you called and you said, "Let's go to a comedy club. I have a ticket. Don't worry, I'll pick you up at 7." And they're
Right.
like, so you're giving back in such a big way because that's like doing a good deed. When you do something nice for yourself, it will overflow into other people. And I just love that when you share that. That's my favorite thing. I keep obviously
Aw,
thinking about. Yeah,
thank
loved it.
you.
So much
Thanks.
about our conversation at lunch was great.
Yeah.
All right, so. I know that you give a lot of really good advice. I love when people come on the show and share their stories and how things work for them because everything works. People have different strategies, things work for different people, but I love how we touched on three different things: pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, for new friendships, showing up authentically, and then, actually like taking the action and buying the two tickets. So all of that said, we always wrap. First of all, is there anything else you want to share with listeners? Somebody out there who might be struggling with a major life change, such as divorce or empty nest, whatever, widowhood or any, is there anything that you left that you haven't said that you don't want to leave
I
unsaid?
mean, I think you and I touched on this before we went on air. But I really think like the single biggest thing is really giving yourself grace, right? I mean, it really, really is. I think especially if you're an overachiever or high achiever, our tendencies are to be really overly critical of ourselves. And, I think it's something I've really struggled with and, you know, I've really had to work on. And it's advice I actually gave my daughter the other day, which I thought was she thought was pretty helpful, which is, in the morning when you get up and, I think our brains are sort of trained, unfortunately, to think about all the things that maybe we need to do better, or maybe we aren't doing well. And I think instead, maybe what is a nice exercise is when you get up in the morning, if you have a journal, or you can even jot it down on a piece of paper. Just when you first wake up in the morning and you're having your coffee and you're maybe scrolling through Instagram and looking at all the self-help gurus that pop up. That's what's on my feed. You could write down maybe three things that you did well that day, or three things that you thought you would do well. And they could be simple things like reaching out to a friend first thing in the morning, or saying good morning to your neighbor when you're walking the dog. They
Mhm.
don't have to be big monumental things, but I think if we can remind ourselves to give ourselves grace and to sort of thank ourselves for all the good things we are doing, which I don't think is really our tendency, unfortunately, as humans, then maybe we can retrain our brains and you'll just feel better throughout the day. So I'm all about like surrounding yourself with people with positive energy and really just I've been learning and trying myself to just give myself a little grace and not be so hard on myself.
So I think that would be the dare. That would be the dare to practice giving yourself grace and practice it, not just thinking about it, but actually writing down three things.
Yeah, I think that writing down is always helpful. And then you could go back and like look at the things and
Yeah,
it might be a fun exercise too to go back maybe in a couple weeks or a year, a couple months or a year and be like, "Oh my God, I can't even believe I was in that place. Look where I am now and look how much healthier I feel."
absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. And you said, so the dare is to practice giving yourself grace and do it by reflecting on things you do well or the things that you can do well that day or maybe have
Exactly.
done well.
Right.
It's interesting that that was your dare, Susan. I didn't think about this when we talked about it before we hit record. Um, on April 10th is our 100th episode next month. And again, I had three guests in that one episode, and each one of them left a dare. And I don't know if it was the dare or if it was answer to one of the questions, but one of the women, she said, women don't stop and recognize all the good things we've done for ourselves and others. We gloss over them and we just focus on the negative. So your dare goes right in line with that, with giving yourself grace and pausing and saying, wait a minute, you know what? I I make people smile.
Right.
I've done this or I can do this. So I love that. And I think it's great that your daughter received that information because we didn't have
We
this.
actually thought it was good advice, Jody. I
It
couldn't
was
believe it.
great advice. The gurus are getting there. They're getting,
That's
look,
right.
I
I
always
wasn't
joke,
an idiot this time. No, no, I'm kidding.
I always tell my kids, I always say, I wish I had had all these resources raising my kids. I don't
Right.
regret. I did the best I could
Right.
with what I knew at the time, but I really wish I knew about not yelling as much and maybe affirmations and maybe gratitude. But I know it now, so my grandchildren will benefit. That's what
Yeah,
I
it
say.
is amazing how, we never stop learning, right? I mean,
You
I
don't.
feel like I have learned and grown more in the last 3 years than I did in the first 51, which
I
is
feel the
crazy.
same way.
Yeah.
Same way.
Yeah.
All right, our announcement.
Okay.
Announcement. What's our announcement? You want to tell them?
Okay, so we have a really exciting series at Gabrielle. It's a women's empowerment series. It's something I started last year at the store, and I'm really proud of it. We are using this beautiful space to empower women and bring women of all backgrounds together, who really, I think, long for and appreciate the sense of community that we're providing. So on Sunday, March 23rd, we're going to open early at 10 o'clock, and we are going to transform the space into a Pilates studio. We did that once before and it worked out beautifully. People really enjoyed it. I'm bringing in one of my favorite Pilates instructors and Lexi Greenberg. She's going to come in from the shore and she's going to hold a half-hour Pilates class for us. She is bringing mats with her, so you don't need to bring a mat. The Pilates class is free. And then after the Pilates class, we're going to have a wonderful meet and greet and talk with you where you're going to talk about 5 ways women can dare themselves to lead a happy and more joyful life. And there will
Absolutely.
be food provided, yummy food from the landing, which is a yummy little spot nearby. And it's a really, really fun way to mingle with other women, and just like a nice way to spend a Sunday morning.
And if you live in Philadelphia in the burbs, come out and meet Susan and myself and all the other women that are going to be in attendance. Click the link in our bio, in the show notes to register for the event. Click
Yes,
the link to register. I can't wait to do this. I'm so excited.
it's going to
And
be awesome. It's
yeah,
going to be awesome.
yeah, I'm excited. And the beautiful space Susan was talking about is not in the storeroom where she is sitting right now. It's in the actual
No, no,
shop.
no, no.
And I've been in the shop and it's a beautiful space.
Right.
So, I'm excited. I'm so excited for this Pilates. And then who doesn't want to learn 5 simple ways? I got
I,
5 dares for you.
I
And
love it.
I'm
I
gonna
love it.
make
I
you
can't
just
wait.
feel joyful. So, yay. I'm excited. All right. Thank you, Susan, for being a guest on our show. Thank you
Thank you, Jody.
for
I'm
sharing.
so glad you came into the store.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm so excited. I love my dress.
Oh, good.
All right, everybody. What was your takeaway? What was one thing that we spoke about today that maybe really resonated or will move you into taking action? Let me know. Send me a message. I'll send it off to Susan. You can connect with Susan. There's some links in the show notes below. Again, if you're from Philly in the burbs, come out and say hi to us on Sunday, March 23rd. Sunday, March 23rd. We want to see you. We want to meet you live and in person. And remember, next week, there'll be another brand new episode of Beyond Empty Nest. And as I always say, dare on. If you've enjoyed today's episode of Beyond Empty Nest, head over to jodysilverman.com for full show notes and other fun resources. Are you ready to clean up your self-talk and reconnect with your midlife purpose? Negative self-talk can hold you back from the confidence, happiness, and relationships you deserve. That's why I created the Self-Talk Cleanup free 7-day mini challenge. In just 5 minutes a day, you'll grow your confidence, boost your happiness, and build resilience to take on life's challenges. Isn't it time to rewrite the story in your head? Well, if you're ready, click the link in the show notes below and join the challenge now. Dare on.